Number two, because everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist at one point, at some point in the past, whether it was through the Big Bang or through God speaking it into existence. The universe began to exist. Do things just begin to exist on their own? No. You would have to have something outside of matter and energy bringing into existence matter and energy.
So, this is basically the cosmological argument, but with an addition, because people argued the cosmological argument, and it, stopped working. So they've added this now, that it begins to exist rather than simply exists. It's now the Kalam's cosmological argument. And Matt Powell delivers this line as if it's true, because confidence is truth in his mind. But the premise itself might not even be true at all. In quantum physics, virtual particles pop in and out of existence with no apparent cause. Now, we do not know the answer to the cause of the Big Bang, like I said, but the leading idea is that it was a quantum fluctuation. But yet Matt said it was from nothing. Now, if a quantum fluctuation can happen, that also entails that there was something. And one of the biggest misconceptions that almost everyone seems to think is that the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe. It wasn't that we know of for sure. It could have been. But the Big Bang only describes inflation. So, the universe existing, then inflating, that's the Big Bang. Not the existing, when it inflates. That's what the Big Bang is explaining. It has nothing to do with the cause itself. The cause of the Big Bang may have a cause, which we describe as potentially a quantum fluctuation, but again, we do not know. The best way to think about it, though, is that the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe as we know it, not the beginning of its existence. It's very possible that the Big Bang wasn't the beginning, but just the beginning that we can go back to. The universe could have existed just as long as they think God did. And there's no reason to think otherwise. In fact, I argue with people in my comment section, at least respectfully from these people, that the universe itself is God. And I can't deny that God exists. It does. The universe does exist. I just don't think it's a God. But I find that the cosmological argument, the Kalam's one as well, everything that begins to exist has a cause. The reason theists changed it is because it used to be that everything that exists has a cause, which instantly flipped it back around onto them, where if the universe existed, it needed a cause, and that was God. And then God must exist in that situation, so therefore, based on the cosmological argument, God needed a cause. So, can the Kalam's cosmological argument stop that? Well, they think that God didn't have a beginning, that God was eternal. But it still is problematic. And here's why. So, our universe contains us. And if we want to think about this a bit differently, because they believe that God is beyond space and time, I think that argues God out of existence. He has no spatial dimensions, and he has no time dimensions. I mean, pause this video, you get rid of my time, and then you could close it down to get rid of me, and that gets rid of my spatial dimensions. Don't do that, because you'll disappear, and then you'd have to come back. But anyway, you get the point. Like, I would then disappear from your screen. I would not exist. So I kind of feel like it's arguing God out of existence, but I'm trying to understand, and the best way I can do that is thinking of the program Blender, or you can think of a game like, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto, or any game that you have a three-dimensional world in. No matter where you move your character in your three-dimensional world, or on GTA, or whatever games you play, I'm getting too old now to play these games, but wherever you move your character in his three-dimensional space and time, you'll never reach you in real life. That's like us with God. But so God exists outside of time and space like we do with those video game characters. That's probably the best way I can describe it. And if you've got a better example, let me know. If that's the case, then God is also said, in Matt's view, to have started our universe, which means time had a 0 point. If time had a 0 point, God couldn't have flicked the switch to turn on time. Because if he did, that means time was already present. Because if it wasn't, there could be no change, because time, or change, requires time. So there must have existed some form of time. Now, just like in Blender in these games, time can be sped up, slowed down, stopped, started. So this also would work with God, because it works for us in those games. But why does it work for us? It works because time exists for us, and it's separate to that of the game characters like GTA or in Blender, where you've got the timeline at the bottom, or on YouTube where you've got a timeline going across here. So God has his own dimension. It's a time dimension. If he doesn't, then he doesn't exist, because he just wouldn't have been able to start time, or if he does exist and didn't create us, then he's not a god. At least in my mind. People can have many different definitions of God and, do with that as you wish. So, if that's the case, God must have his own dimension, time. And if that's the case, he doesn't need space, but he needs one dimension at least to do the things he said he'd done. But that means God exists in a form of existence, a universe of his own. So God requires a universe to start us. He at least needs some parameters, something that exists beyond God. And if that's the case, who created God's universe? Because that must have begun to exist. Or God's universe is actually the God, and God is just a character. I'm not sure how you want to take that, but ultimately God requires a universe, and if a universe requires a God, then God must have a God still.